Hello and welcome to Russians with Attitude. This episode will be dedicated to the recent Israeli American attack on Iran only. An urgent broadcast featuring our honest assessment of the situation. And as you probably know, yesterday Iran was attacked. But this time it was a much fiercer joint attack by US and Israel combined, which resulted in the death of an 86-year-old Ayatollah Khamenei. Iran hit a lot of targets, not only in Israel but also in United Arab Emirates, Oman, Kuwait, and others, including some civilian infrastructure, as you have seen, maybe with the hotels in Dubai burning and some airports. The Israelis bombed number of civilian infrastructure as well, such as the girls' school in Iran, destroyed in broad daylight, and dozens of schoolgirls buried under the rubble. Up to 80, I believe, deaths in this
Over
school.
100 now.
Over 100, yes. Trump,
hmm
meanwhile, Trump was sitting in his baseball cap indoors at the basement of Mar-a-Lago, gleefully watching footage being shown to him by his aides. And speaking of aides, Lindsey Graham rejoiced that, quote, the most evil man on the freaking planet, end quote, was killed. Russian tourists are fleeing Dubai, the Middle East is burning again, and the Strait of Hormuz was not officially closed, I believe, but tankers stopped crossing it just in case. So, Kirill, what is your assessment of the situation?
Well, the situation is that it appears that the Americans believed that the assassination of Ayatollah Khamenei would, I don't know, somehow lead to the collapse of the Iranian regime and that they could do a Venezuela type thing, probably, and that they will just bomb Iran and Iran will not bomb anyone in response. It appears that this was the hypothesis. It is being currently disproven by Iran launching over 300 missiles yesterday and an indeterminate number of drones, and continuing today. Just today, there have been multiple hits on Israel, in Tel Aviv, in Jerusalem, in Beit Shemesh, and also in Bahrain, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. Basically, the Iranians are not playing any games. They are straight up pounding every country in the region that is hosting US military bases. They have inflicted damage on several military bases, particularly US naval base in Bahrain, which is the headquarters of the Fifth Fleet and the headquarters of the naval component of CENTCOM. The Iranians have struck a radar installation there and also some other buildings, which it's a bit hard to determine what they hit. They also hit a bunch of other US military bases, particularly the one, Jesus Christ, give me a sec. There are a lot of Middle Eastern names to remember. Right. Ali Al Salem Air Base in Kuwait was struck by a bunch of Iranian missiles that, judging by the satellite footage published by the Chinese, of course, your Maxar is not going to publish satellite footage of these hits, but the Chinese also have satellites, so we can enjoy some of those views. It's a very critical logistics hub in the region. It's the main airbase for airlift operations and troop movement in the entire Middle East, Ali Al Salem Air Base in Kuwait. There are at least 4 large fires on the base, and we don't know how much else. One of those was a fuel depot, I believe. There's a gigantic black cloud of smoke, and in general, yeah. The Americans insist that there is zero damage to anything, and there are no casualties, and nothing is happening, and the Iranians are already defeated, basically. Yeah, втрат немає. But strikes are ongoing. The Iranians have, according to Western estimates, only have like 10 days left of missiles, I suppose.
Yeah,
And
what about the damage to Israel this time? I don't think that
uh,
anything major was done yet.
I think they hit the IDF headquarters, but of course, hard to tell if if anyone is actually in there in wartime.
Yeah.
But yeah, the Israelis are actually much harsher with the military censorship than they were last year during the 12-day war. We are getting extremely little footage out of Israel, so it's very hard to estimate what actually was hit and what the damage is. Of course, Iran is being pounded pretty hard as well. Today, particularly the Israelis started attacking downtown Tehran, killing a bunch of people. And yeah, the interesting things from the military side of things is that as of now, Iranian air defenses seem to be more or less intact because Israel and the US are only firing standoff munitions at Iran. That means long range missiles that are launched from the air, land, and sea, but they are not bombing. They're not dropping JDAMs on Iran or anything. There has so far been no indication of US or Israeli aircraft entering Iranian airspace. So it's all standoff munitions. And aside from a few drones, some of those were shot down by the. I think yesterday the Iranians shot down 4 Israeli drones or something. Um, but yeah, that is interesting, and it's sort of I don't know, fast forward attrition war because Iranian missile stocks are limited, and U.S. and Israeli standoff munition stocks, and particularly interceptor stocks, are also quite limited. Still, the Iranians have not been using as many shaheds as you would expect. They did use them yesterday, quite a lot of them, but uh, certainly not as many as one would have expected to overwhelm air defenses. Maybe they are keeping them in stock for something. Maybe they were struck. Last year, if I remember correctly, the Shahed bases were among the first targets to be hit by the Israelis and the Americans. And so the Iranians were not able to effectively leverage their drone superiority at that time. Maybe they did this now as well, but they seem to be using Shaheds more than last year.
Yeah, and the thing that I care more than the geopolitical side of things is that lots of people and lots of Russian people are stuck. They're offering like buses to safety for lots of money. There's, I believe, like tens of thousands of Russians, quite a number of them.
Yeah,
Um,
they said today that 20,000 Russians are stuck in Dubai.
Yeah, and in Iran itself also there are
Yeah,
some thousands of Russians in Iran, and that's always bad. But as to the larger topic, to recap the idea behind it all, idea behind the operation, what was it called? Epic Fury,
yeah.
and the Iranian counter operation. Правдивое обещание in Russian, right?
True promise. Yeah, true
True
promise.
promise. Yeah.
True
So
promise
anyway,
4.
So Trump says the same things that he was saying 7 months ago, basically, that Iran cannot have the nuclear program that he destroyed 7 months ago. And that's why supposedly they killed Ayatollah Khamenei, which suggests that it has nothing to do, and it never had anything to do with the nuclear program as such. And especially this time around, because they went straight to the for the head, right, killing the leaders of Iran, hopefully accelerating some kind of regime change inside the country, and that's the only idea here. Also, if they're serious at all about nuclear proliferation, and that they're this angle, right, that Iran cannot have nukes, well, first of all, it's questionable, right? The whole premise that nukes should not be spread, and they can only be illegally owned by Israel, but not any other country. I don't agree with that. But if they're serious at all about it, clearly that they lied 7 months ago about the Fordo base and so on, and the nuclear program being completely destroyed 7 months ago. So it's a like it's a multifaceted lie. There's lots of lies mixed in between. So the 12-day war ended with kind of nothing. Well, it ended with the Fordo, right? US,
The
yeah,
12-day war ended by the Israelis being overwhelmed by so many Iranian missiles getting through and hitting them. And America basically agreed with, they basically the white peace. They
yeah.
agreed that America would get to pretend to bomb Iranian nuclear facilities, and in exchange, the Iranians would get to pretend to bomb a U.S. military base, the one in Qatar, Al Udeid. And so they did that, and then the war basically stopped.
But it
So
was not because Israel completely abandoned the plans. It was not used to get hurt as much.
yeah,
So they did the 7 months of waiting and basically what they want to do in Ukraine as well, right? To have like a months long ceasefire, to have elections, whatever else, but really to prepare a better plan against Russia. And they did prepare a better plan. They were torturing all kind of ChatGPT systems and Claude and others, right? And they came up with the best plan ever. And this plan was about striking the Ayatollah Khamenei in his residence in Tehran, and it worked. And now, why did it work, and why wasn't Ayatollah Khamenei, this ancient man, inside a bunker somewhere? Why do you think that is?
I think that for a man who is almost 90 years old and the head of a religious movement that venerates martyrdom above all else, I think he was, happy to get the chance.
Yeah.
He did say so, actually. In the Iranian government accounts posted an old sermon of Ayatollah Khamenei, in which he said that he would be very sad if he died of sickness or in his bed instead of becoming a martyr. So in the end,
Hmm.
they fulfilled his wish. It's like an old Viking chieftain, and they put a
Yeah.
sword in his hand so he can go to Valhalla after all, kind of like that.
In the words of a FBI director, see you in Valhalla, brother. Yeah. So, yeah, he died Viking's death, and but will it work? And to what end? U.S. obviously hopes that with Ayatollah Khamenei's death, in the first day of the new war, it will trigger some change. And also, they try to kill Pezeshkian as well, the
Yeah, yeah.
president. So yeah, they failed at getting the president, but yeah, it was clearly the regime change via Tomahawk kind of operation. And
Mm-hmm.
it did provide this Vikings death of the Ayatollah, but there is a kind of a process of rearrangement of the leadership and the new Ayatollah candidates and so on. Do you think it would actually, well, destabilize the pretty tense and pretty bad situation within Iran after like long protests, right? Long and bloody protests recently, or it will lead to martyrdom and unity, the people.
It's hard to say because no one outside of the Iranian highest circles really knows what's going on there, but there, at least outwardly, there doesn't seem to be any fracturing. And considering that Khamenei died immediately in the first wave of strikes, from what I understand,
Yeah.
and Iran has been continuously executing military attacks for 30 hours since this happened, with no apparent problems with command and control. The situation seems to be under control. I mean, it's not like this old man was sitting in the command bunker and hitting play on every launch of a ballistic missile. Like, that's not his job. He is more like, I don't know, a symbolic leader than an actual leader.
Kind of like
And
Donald Trump in America.
yeah, and even so, several weeks ago, the Iranian government transferred a lot of power to Ali Larijani, the secretary of the Supreme National Security Council in Iran. He is an old Revolutionary Guard veteran who has been part of the Iranian government for 20 years or so or more. So he's been active in the National Security Council of Iran. He was Speaker of the Iranian parliament for a long time. So basically, one of the higher ups. And uh, a scholar of philosophy, actually. He wrote several academic works on Immanuel Kant. So, yeah. Um, he he used to be a hardliner, what they call principlists in Iran. And then he started associating more with the reformers, the moderate camps. But his rhetoric in the last years again has been very hardline. So it seems that he is not willing to make any compromises. Though Pizeshkian himself has also rhetorically not made any concessions and said that the Israeli-US attack is a declaration of war against Islam and things like that. So we have Larijani, who is currently sort of like the military dictator, I suppose, of Iran, who holds the secular power. And they have also appointed an interim Ayatollah, Arafi, right? Ali Reza Arafi. Yeah, so you know, he's the EO of the grand leader of Iran right now, and
Yeah.
the Iranians have a quite decentralized approach to leadership. They have succession plans in place, or usually, and they also have pre-approved military plans that don't get disrupted when a commander is killed. Basically, they know what to expect from war with America and Israel. So there don't seem to have been any major disruptions, and in general, they seem much better prepared than they were last year. Because last year there was like a full day, basically, of Iran being completely paralyzed and not doing anything, not reacting to anything, while they were being bombed. And
Mhm.
but this time they started retaliating immediately and much more broadly than they did during the 12-day war. I mean, they shut down. They put into effect, aerial blockades of half a dozen countries. They are imposing very severe economic damage
And the
right
price
now.
for oil will surely go up. And because
Yes.
it doesn't even matter if the Strait of Hormuz will be actually paralyzed for months, because it's about expectations, right? The price is being formed
Mm,
by the market expectation, and the expectation is that it's not going to be good, and that will mean that the price will go up. But yeah, back to the problems of the Iranian leadership, as we have mentioned on our Twitter page and Telegram, that the major problem that Iran itself was against acquiring nukes.
yeah.
And as the whole game, the whole browbeating, the whole gaslighting by the US that you can't have nukes. Well, no one even tried to have nukes in Iran, and that's the problem. If they did, like acquire them in the 90s and 2000s, the whole situation would be different. No one would be shooting them like sitting ducks in their residences. That's pretty much it. And because for some reason, theological reason, right? They shot themselves in the foot and failed at acquiring the nukes, which could have been done if they tried very hard.
Yeah, easily,
Uh,
of course, easily.
or not very hard even, yeah. But the thing is, yeah, that's the problem with the Islamic revolutionary whatever ideology. I am not a fan of, to clarify my own position, I do sympathize with Iran, of course, because it's a clear, not even that it's a victim, but it's a victim of unwarranted and undeserved aggression, right? And especially I do sympathize with the people of Iran, and that's the rhetoric probably used by some US aid, NGOs or whatever. We are killing your ayatollahs to free the people of Iran, but
Yeah, to
really,
liberate the Iranian woman.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But really, it's very cynical and it's very they're not even hiding it, right? It's like there is a family with some problems living in their own apartment, and you know that they have some problems within the family, and that's why you destroy their door and kill the husband and one kid, and say you're liberated now, a woman. Go, go about your business. I freed you. That's basically what they're trying to do. And of course, the Iranians won't like that. They don't like when their kids are getting killed in Israeli attacks. I don't think that's very liberating, right, for them. So it's from bad to worse. But and my gripe with the revolutionary Islamic stuff is that, well, it's not very competent. It's competent in maybe some Shia theological debates and maybe preservation of some traditions, but other than that, it's not very adaptable to the modern world. I believe that the government should represent what the people actually are, and some and there shouldn't be a giant disconnect between the government and the people. And there certainly is one in Iran, because the people around are much more secular than the state ideology. They're
Again,
much
I
more,
wouldn't I
yeah.
wouldn't overstate this. The population of Iran is much more secular and liberal than the government in the big cities. That's certainly the case in Tehran, maybe now I don't know, Tabriz and Shiraz as well, but it's definitely not the case in the countryside. The countryside and
I mean,
liberals in
the
Tehran
rural, yeah, yeah,
are not representative of the
they are
entirety
though.
of the 90 million people in
No,
Iran.
look, the rural population of Iran is 22%. It's not that rural anymore. It's very urban. That's the thing about the rural population, is that it's disappearing across the board, right? And
Hmm.
yeah, I think that that's the same share of the rural population as in Russia, more or less. So it's a very urban society in Iran, and that means that there is a disconnect between the ayatollahs and the people. But my ideal Iran would be, more representative of them. Maybe some, not that, whatever they choose. But I think if they were to choose, they would choose something as fiercely independent as the current regime, right? And not a pro-American one for sure. In any case, Americans are trying to exploit, the problems and this rhetoric for their own goals, and not even for their own goals, but to please
For Israel's
Israel.
goals, yeah.
Yeah, and it's very ugly. It's very ugly. It's the same as barging into some apartment and killing half the family. That aside, though, yeah, they don't have nukes, and that's why they're getting constantly attacked. What
Yeah,
else is
and
there?
one other point that I would really like to hammer home is what we just said, that this is really not in the interest of the US. The US have zero strategic interests in destabilizing Iran and turning it into a failed state. That is entirely the desire of Israel, because Iran is the last counterweight in the region that exists. They have destroyed Syria. Basically, what Israel wants Iran to become is Syria. They want them to have a long, devastating civil war. They want the country to fracture. They want the institutions to die. And, Syria used to be a country with fighter jets, a nuclear program, research universities, and so on. And now it's a bunch of cavemen stabbing each other and looking up at the sky and wondering what those big steel birds are, and possessing zero strategic weaponry. And that is exactly what Israel wants to happen to Iran. They just want them to become a complete failed state that can never be a threat anymore
Yeah.
or a check on their ambitions.
Yeah, and that is defensible for sure. As to what Iran can actually do to stop it, other than, yeah, as you said, it's a fast track, fast motion, attritional warfare, and it's not gonna last for more than a few weeks, I don't think, because there's gonna, yeah, there will run out of missiles and interceptors, and I don't think that U.S. will, gear for a war economy to bomb Iran indefinitely. I think it's an obvious bluff. So they want to destabilize things, bomb them into the failed state status, and then install some. Not even Shah. They don't even care about all that, right? I think that it's a real degradation of the pattern that was constantly repeating by the US one way or another. They did the same in Iraq, but it was a much more, it was boots on the ground, right? They were committed much more to this regime change in Iraq. It was an actual war, and they even tried to do something out of the new Iranian government. They failed at that spectacularly, and there was some higher ideals statements like if now US bombs Iran because of their nuclear program that was destroyed, well, it's kind of the flimsiest, dumbest argument ever. And compared to that, the Iraqi war propositions were also bad and flimsy, but they at least tried. And now Americans are not even
Yeah,
trying.
they're not even trying. They're not even pretending that there was a reason to bomb Iran. Like they have these phrases about, oh, the Iranians refuse to abandon their ballistic missile program. Like, what the fuck do you have to do with Iran's ballistic missile program? Like, it's literally just they told Iran to destroy every weapon they have that can reach Israel. Like, that was the key demand. and
Yeah,
um, and of course, as we learned now from various sources in the Washington Post, the Wall Street Journal, they reported on this. Israeli media have also reported on this, Channel 18, if I remember correctly, that the entire negotiations were fake again. That the negotiations were just there to buy time and to make it a surprise attack, because the delegations were supposed to meet, I think, tomorrow or the day after.
yeah,
And
classic.
yeah, classic. It's. I really don't understand why people still fall for this. Like, they
I
did
think
this
it's because
already.
of
They
the
did this
past.
last year.
Yeah, I think it's because of the past achievements. Because America used to be a pretty great country, and it used to be respected, even begrudgingly. And it's now it doesn't really deserve this unwarranted respect. That's the problem, right? That it's of course the Trumpists and some Americans are rejoicing that they took out Iran, as they say, and whatever. But it's a clear process of the thin veneer of civilization and state complexity and prestige and all other metrics being degraded in America, because it's turning into a banana republic with nukes and something and lots of tomahawk missiles that will do whatever. And like even 20 years ago with Iraq, they tried to persuade the centrist voters or whatever, like, maybe they do have the weapons of mass destruction, even though it was retarded even back then. But there was some kind of an argument, some kind of a back and forth. Now it's we should arrest Maduro because of the fentanyl reactor, and we should destroy their ballistic missile program, like there is not even a pretense. So I don't think it's a good sign, right? Then that the great power, the superpower, right, is acting this way, erratic and retarded way. It should. I think it's a sign of a decline, actually, and it's not a sign of their victories.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. And I mean, the Americans, they are living in cape shit world right now. If you look at Twitter, like 90% of Americans are convinced that the war is over, that they have won, that Iran is not doing anything, that Iran is not defending itself, that American and Israeli jets are flying over Tehran and all
yeah,
that stuff. And it's like it's a completely different reality. And of course, they're not acknowledging that the US bases are being hit and very heavily damaged. It's I
yeah.
don't know. These people are. I don't know, it's
I
so
think what
bizarre.
America did, instead of trying to create better arguments and better foreign policy, they just decided to invent this virtual space of cape shit where they're always right, so that so they don't have to bother explaining things anymore, right? They don't have to
Hmm.
bother because yeah, the people will like it one way or another. All it needs is to be swift and very loud, and the aviation carriers should be randomly selecting a country that they will approach and besiege for half a year, and then they will do limited strikes and then proclaim victory and rinse and repeat, with no explanation at all, to kind of establish themselves that they're big and scary. Yeah, I think it's a degradation of American prestige and the American and the separation of realities, right? Because previously it was the idea that with internet you have access to the whole information, but it doesn't really
Hmm.
work that way.
Yeah.
Theoretically they could acquire this information, but they don't want to and won't do it. So yeah. As to the other things, the Strait of Hormuz, and let's imagine, right, that the price will actually go up to the hundred. What will it mean for everyone? I think
It will
that
mean
yeah,
that that Europe will become completely dependent on U.S. oil, and Asia will become completely dependent on Russian oil, more or less. That China will have basically will have to buy huge amounts of Russian oil. India will have to buy huge amounts of Russian oil again, despite whatever they say. You know how they reduced
yeah,
Russian oil buying by 40%, but they will have to buy huge amounts of Russian oil. And yeah, the oil will shoot up. It will solve the problem of the Russian budgetary deficit
yeah,
for the foreseeable
yeah.
future. And yeah, we are going to level Kiev with gold plated Iskanders.
If we will cut the bullshit, right? Because it's the public space is now like rendered brain dead, and like anything goes. But the people at the top have their own reasons other than Israel, and I guess one of the reasons, obvious reasons, it's because American elite still believes in peak oil, and they think that oil will run out or it's in danger of running out sometime down the line, and they need to acquire control of major oil producers one way or another, right, to stay at the top. That's, I think, the only logical explanation how it was sold to them, right? The Venezuela thing, because it was not about fentanyl, but it was about. Coincidentally, they're all oil producers, so giant oil producers, right? So, yeah. And by inserting themselves, and they don't even bother about regime change anymore, because what do they care, right? Who runs Venezuela? Because they all they care about is theoretically controlling most of the energy sources, and that's pretty much it. And that's the my honest assessment of their ideas, whether it's real or not. But that's their rationale. And yeah, one way or another, Russia wins from price going up. Europe loses badly from all the American plans, and China
Yeah, but
also.
they
Well,
already all have the Europeans already all have made statements that they harshly oppose Iran's unprovoked attacks.
uh, yeah, so they didn't mention the American aggression, right? It was just
Mm-hmm.
Iran's
Yeah,
attacks. Okay, cool.
I think the
Yeah,
technical term. I think the technical term is goy kettle.
yeah, yeah. Like we're really witnessing like two, three, four realities being formed, like bubbles,
Mm-hmm.
impenetrable bubbles, and there are people in between the bubbles, and that's actually, well, us and our dear listeners, because
Yeah.
we are not meaning, we are not inside the Russian bubble, and the Russian bubble doesn't really exist. I don't think that the Kremlin miracle workers created this bubble. It's only reserved for the pensioners, basically. It's a very narrow bubble. No one wants to be there. But that means that most Russians are very clear minded, and that's a good thing. That's why I love my country, because I would hate to be surrounded by most Americans these days. It would be painful, like intellectually painful, to converse with them on any given topic, because you just know what they're gonna say next, and it's all false. That's the problem. Do you have any takes on
I mean,
whether it will freeze or yeah?
like I said on the first day, I think it's still in the realm of possibility that the Americans just stop and declare
Proclaim
victory at
victory?
some
Yeah,
point. Yeah, and say that it was the bestest military operation in the history of the universe, and that Iran is now free and just go home. And yeah, that's depends on if the
yeah.
Iranians agree to it. But I think it's a distinct possibility that the Iranians would just say, "Yeah, okay," they take the win and go back to stabilizing the country. It is possible. I'm not. I wouldn't say. I'm not going to give it a percentage, but it is a possibility. On the other hand, Iran is now prosecuting a quite effective counter value campaign against the entire US axis in the region. They are imposing severe economic damage for minimal cost. And these states, the Emirates, Oman, Bahrain, Qatar, Kuwait, whatever, they are the exclusive hosts of the US military in the region. And without them, the US military, without them, CENTCOM cannot function, and they are showing right now that they can make life quite unpleasant for the US vessels in the area.
Yeah, I think the vassal states are most affected by this war, unlike the previous war, right?
Yeah, and they
Uh,
clearly didn't expect that. They clearly didn't expect
yeah,
that at all.
it was such a safe haven, all these Qatars and Dubais, and yeah, I don't even know where they're located on the map, like each individual one. Yeah, I know there's appendixes, right, of the Saudi Arabia, and yeah,
Hmm.
some bullshit, but these places were such artificial shopping malls, disgusting artificial shopping malls, and
Yeah.
that's my point of contention with the Russian nation, because Russians like them for some reason. Well, some normie Russians, who are like luxury stuff, and they go on vacation to Dubai, and
Hmm.
I don't understand them. That's
Yeah, I don't understand it
sheer psyop.
either. I can just go to TC Европейский right here in Moscow. I don't have to go to
Yeah.
Dubai for that.
Yeah, we have Greenwich in Ekaterinburg. Thank you very much. Yeah, but I'm really glad that this is undeserved prestige and safety of this very artificial, made of plastic, very recently places is being threatened, because yeah, it's not real. Like, none of it is real. Tehran is a real city, and those Abu Dhabis are just fake. and it's like reality being slipping through the cracks. And it's also good that Russians, well, hopefully stop this wild trend, right? And they will stop worshiping the Dubai so much, because I can't stand it anymore. And that's a good
Yeah,
thing. Yeah.
absolutely.
But yeah, as to the conflict, we will see how will it end. Yeah,
Yeah.
just a quick premonition that I think that at the end of the day, maybe in a decade from now, but eventually, US will leave the Middle East and will be pushed out of the Middle East, and we're kind of seeing the contours of how it can happen by hurting all these vassal states, right? It can be done, and it can. It's a house of cards. I think this whole American, Qatar, Abu Dhabi structure, and it's dependent on like the Strait of Hormuz is one of the choke points and leverages that could destroy this house of cards, and there are other methods as well.
Yeah, there's one really bad scenario that also is a distinct possibility, namely that parts of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps establishment basically flip and accept and do a sort of hardcore Venezuela thing, basically, where they
Mhm.
just agree to U.S. demands, and in exchange for being allowed to stay in power and to continue controlling 2/3 of the Iranian economy, they would just agree to turn Iran into a new Pakistan.
Yeah.
That is a possibility that I would not discount completely.
That would be bad. Yeah, that would mean that U.S. military presence in the region will be prolonged by decades and decades, right?
Hmm.
Well, on one hand, and the other hand, like let's imagine the bad scenario wins, and parts of the Iranian elite betrays the course and becomes a puppet. Then what? What Israel is going to do next? Like, are they serious about the greater Israel? And why do they need that anyway? To achieve what exactly? Because I don't really understand. It's like there will be a vacuum of an enemy in the Middle East, right? If that would be the case, and someone needs to act the part. I feel like for the world equilibrium or whatever. There was another short war. Well, not war, but whatever, the skirmish between Afghanistan and Pakistan.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hmm.
I think that Afghanis attacked some outposts and Pakistanis were ready and strike. Yeah, I haven't followed that. I think it's just a skirmish, just like in Thailand and Cambodia, right? Like,
Hmm.
there's nothing deeper about that, not that deep. But yeah,
I mean, the problem is really just that, they have a very long border that is very hard to control, and there are um, Pakistani anti government insurgents hiding in Afghanistan, and there are Afghani anti government insurgents hiding in Pakistan. So, really, they accuse each other. It's really funny. If you look at the Wikipedia page for the ongoing war, then you have belligerents, Pakistan on the one side, and Islamic State, alleged by Afghanistan. And then on the other side, you have Afghanistan and Islamic State, alleged by Pakistan. So basically, they both accuse each other of harboring terrorists, and yeah, it's a mess. It's a mess.
yeah,
You have the Pakistani Taliban in Afghanistan, the Balochistan Liberation Army, which are anti-Pakistan guys. Then you have various anti-Taliban orgs like the I think whatever survived of the Northern Alliance. I think it's called, what is it called? I think it's National Resistance Front or something. They are sitting in Pakistan. The so-called Afghanistan Freedom Front, which are also these. If I might be mistaken, but I think those are like survivors of the pro-American government.
yeah.
Yeah, and then of course you have in the middle of that the ISIS K, the Islamic State Khorasan, um, which supposedly is allied with Pakistan, but also not, and it's very complicated and messy, and yeah.
It sounds very romantic for some reason because I'm so detached from realities of Pakistan and Afghanistan that I could imagine theoretically myself being this figure, in the local intrigue because you don't give a shit. You just operating as some kind of a operative from another country, something that Lord Miles LARPed as. And I think the
Yeah.
LARP was good. The man himself is pretty rotten, but the LARP was pretty romantic. I gotta give him that. And there are probably real operatives there, right? From Russia as well, from UK, from America, that are enjoying these romantic exploits. And I like that for them. But
Yeah.
yeah, Trump just said that yeah. So the image of Trump sitting in like changing his baseball caps and sitting in the Mar-a-Lago and being shown footage with his friends, it's like he looks like a little boy and he acts like a little boy and he speaks like a little boy. I think that's the best description of him.
Hmm.
That's he's been infantilized into a kind of a 10-year-old state. It's boyhood. Like, can you imagine a grown man writing this? Iran just stated that they're going to hit very hard today, harder than they
Hmm.
have ever been hit before. What the fuck is he talking about? I think it's harder than they ever hit before. They better not do that, however, because if they do, we will hit them with a force that has never been seen before. Thank you for attention to this matter. All in caps. Yeah, it's a little boy playing, war with toy soldiers from Florida, and he needs to be spanked by his mommy Melania and given ice cream and tucked
Yeah.
to sleep, and that's basically it. But he doesn't really decide much. I wouldn't attach all that to him, and I think it will kind of taint his image because yeah, as a pop culture figure he will remain there, right? um, in the American pantheon, but to end his, I don't think that these chapters will be looked fondly at by anyone because
Yeah.
they sound vicious. It's like a little boy torturing cats for no reason, and
Hmm.
yeah, there was some funny bit like the whole internet is only talking about Iran. It's all Iran. It's all everyone is monitoring the situation. And in the midst of it all, in the American Twitter, there was a famous tweet, no popular tweet by some. Putin is willing to accept U.S. security guarantees in Ukraine, hinting that Putin was scared so much, right, by the Iran showdown that he is now supposedly okay with the U.S. security guarantees for Ukraine.
Yeah, and you know where that statement originally comes from?
From Budanov, no?
Yes, yes, from Kirill Budanov, who just the other day said actually that it's a Ukrainian war goal to split up Russia into a bunch of smaller nations. So yeah, it's he's just saying
Interesting.
whatever these days.
He's trying hard to play a different role than before, although this statement about splitting Russia into smaller states doesn't sound very nice. But I think he's trying to, be some kind of too smart for his own good, kind of a diplomat or whatever. He's trying hard. I think a lot of the people around Zelensky have their own presidential ambitions because they're jealous of what Zelensky quote unquote achieved. And why is it such a a comfortable position? Because they know that Putin will not kill the leader of Ukraine, and that's very reassuring. And also it means that you will have international press, endless money supply, and there will be fools not to want the place of Zelensky. And Zaluzhny is in the game, and Budanov, and that's why they're trying to be multidimensional kind of characters, that we're not just, puppets of Zelensky, but we have our own sophisticated means of dealing with Russia.
I actually want to go back to something we already talked about, just because it was so egregious to me. The bombing of the school in the town of Minab, during which over 100 little girls died. It was an elementary school, an all-girls elementary school, that was hit in the first wave of strikes. And I don't know. It just I'm usually very desensitized to this sort of thing, and I'm pretty, clear pilled and stone cold and whatnot. But this one really got to me somehow. Um, the videos and all that stuff. It's just, I don't know. It's just so fucking evil. It's like cartoonishly evil and satanic to just, murder 100 little girls on Purim, a Jewish holiday that celebrates the mass murder of Persians, and then they start, like, immediately after the news broke, they started the cycle of lies that they always do, that they have perfected in Ukraine and since 2014, and that they have used in Gaza and so on. That they, at the same time, they say that actually, no one died, and it was a legitimate military target, and no civilians were harmed. Then, that the
Yeah.
soldiers used them as human shields and basically forced them to kill them, and they can't be blamed for that. And then the third lie is that actually it was an Iranian rocket that misfired and killed all of the
Yeah.
little girls. And they say all those three things at the same time, that those three things that are completely contradictory, and they just stay like, it's so barbarian to even attempt to do this. And of course they don't feel any cognitive dissonance about this, despite saying things that are mutually exclusive. It's just the complete disregard for human life, and I don't know. I don't like it. It really upset me yesterday.
Yeah. Well, the disgusting freaks like Laura Loomer, I think, is one of the who's spreading the narrative about that. It's Iranians who are shelling themselves, right?
Yeah, yeah.
It's a misfiring. She has no clue. She doesn't need to, because for her, it's
Кондиционер
a clan
взорвался.
war. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. It's to the point where clannishness becomes, yeah, strips you of human qualities, and it's normal, like in some African tribes. But when, those are the top voices of a nation that claims to, be in the future, almost approaching singularity, and it's Laura Loomers all down the line, right? Gleeful that little girls died. Yeah, it's not looking great, man. And I think that the numerology part and the Purim part and so on, I think that it's pretty important, actually, and shouldn't be discounted. And I think that the SMO started because of the same logic, but within the Russian canon. Like, that there is a Motherland Defenders Day, right? Or I think it's Fatherland Defenders Day in this
Mm-hmm.
context, on 23rd of February in Russia. And on 24th, there was the start of the SMO, which was timed, I think, not only for logical reasons, but also to have this, people are celebrating the Men's Day, the Defenders Day. They drink, and on the next morning they go to Ukraine to, denazify or demilitarize
There
again.
are actually counter arguments to this, because the start of the SMO was moved several times.
There
Supposed
is
to
a
start on the 16th and then on the 22nd.
Yeah, 22nd. Yeah, that was the date that many talked about. And in any case, the logic was that the ground should be frozen,
Yeah,
but I
so the
think
tanks
that
can
there is a
move. Yeah.
number of time I mean, maybe in January it was already frozen. It depends. I don't know. I'm not a geologist of the northern Kiev region, Chernobyl, but yeah. As to the Purim, I think it matters a lot to them. And there is another fun thing. Trump is the 47th president of the United States right now, and
Mm-hmm.
apparently there is the 47th anniversary of the Iranian Revolution.
Yeah.
So
Mm-hmm.
47 years. So yeah, it's kind of, I think those cheap tricks actually do matter to people. He was approached by a cabal of Laura Loomers, and was and they said, look man, you're the 47th president, right? And it was the 47 years of Iranian Muslim terror, and you have to do this, and that would be very cool. Also, it's Purim, so it's a very blessed day, and you will go to heaven, maybe to the Jewish heaven, if you do this. And he was convinced, and he doesn't give a fuck. And yeah, he's just a misguided and cruel little boy at the end of the day. I don't mean to sound like patronizing, like a liberal, but really mentally, I like when I saw these pictures, like every time he goes to this basement, right, the war room, the
Mm-hmm.
whatever, where he was shown pictures, something about him in the baseball cap sounds like looks like he's very adolescent, which is normal for old people. Like old people are very much alike, kids in lots of aspects. But yeah, all right. So I think that was it. Let's hope for the best, and for the gold-plated Iskanders, and
Yeah.
world peace, of course. See you guys very soon.